James Holt epitomized the discipline and stoicism required of a royal guard stationed at Buckingham Palace, a role he had pursued since childhood, inspired by the unwavering service of his grandfather, a decorated veteran from an early age he had admired the silent strength of those who stood watch over history, dedicating himself to the rigorous training and exacting standards that defined his station. His duty was not merely ceremonial but symbolic, a manifestation of unyielding tradition and resilience. Yet on this particular morning, as he assumed his post amidst the dense London fog, a sense of unease settled upon him, prompting a heightened state of vigilance at first glance the day unfolded. Predictably, tourists congregated, capturing photographs. Children found amusement in the unflinching demeanor of the guards, and street performers sought attention. However, James's trained perception identified an anomaly, a frail elderly gentleman encircled by three younger men near the palace. Gates the elder, later identified as Marcus Turner, bore a dignified presence despite his age. His suit, though worn, was accompanied by an array of military medals indicative of a storied past. His hands trembled not from fear, but the inexorable passage of time, James observed as one of the young men, possessing an air of casual derision, reached out and tapped a medal, a smirk playing upon his lips. Marcus stiffened but did not retaliate. James, bound by strict institutional protocol, was trained to remain impassive unless an overt threat materialized. Yet an internal conflict arose, one between duty and moral imperative. "Oi, old man," one of the young men sneered derisively, eyeing the medals. "Bet you don't even remember what these are for Marcus." Met his gaze unwaveringly. I remember every moment. His voice carried the weight of history, unyielding in its conviction. The leader of the group scoffed. "Yeah, well, they don't mean much now, do they?" James perceived the escalation a moment before. It occurred. The leader grasped the largest medal, yanking it forcefully. Marcus stumbled but regained his footing. At that instant, James made a decision, one that transcended the bounds of his professional obligations. James hesitated, a rare moment of indecision weighing upon him. The rigid training ingrained in him demanded stillness. Yet his conscience urged action. 1,000 silent drills had prepared him for discipline, but not for this. The moment where moral imperative clashed with institutional duty. His pulse quickened, his breath, steady, yet charged with anticipation, finally breaking from his post. James advanced each step, carrying the weight of his decision. A collective gasp rippled through the crowd. The rigid decorum of the royal guards dictated absolute stillness. Thus his movement was an anomaly, worthy of scrutiny. Mobile phones were swiftly raised, recording the unprecedented event let go of him. James stated, his tone measured yet resolute. The aggressor turned, initially startled, before adopting a mocking demeanor. "Oh, look," the tin soldier speaks. James remained composed, his gaze unflinching. The two accomplices exchanged uncertain glances. The tourists, initially unsure whether they were witnessing a disciplinary breach or an act of defiance, whispered among themselves. "Step back," James commanded the leader, emboldened by the attention, to take a deliberate step forward. "Or what?" James responded instantaneously with precise efficiency. He seized the assailant's wrist, executing a controlled maneuver that elicited a sharp cry and forced the release of the medal. Marcus instinctively caught it, his fingers closing around the familiar weight leave. James instructed, his grip tightening ever so slightly to reinforce the severity of his directive. The young man recoiled, rubbing his wrist indignantly. "This isn't over," he muttered before retreating, his cohorts following suit, following the surrounding. Spectators erupted into applause. The video footage quickly spread online, garnering widespread attention. People praised James for his intervention, while debates arose about the rigidity of institutional protocol versus the necessity of moral action. Marcus regarded James, his gaze reflecting gratitude and understanding. "You didn't have to do that, son." James straightened, feeling the gravity of his actions. "Yes, sir, I did." Moments later, James was summoned within the palace. Captain Ellis awaited. Him, arms crossed, his expression inscrutable. "You breached protocol?" Ellis stated, "Yes, sir. Do you understand the implications?" James nodded. "I do, sir." Ellis sighed, regarding him for a long moment, his fingers drumming lightly against the polished surface of the desk before stilling his gaze. Unreadable, yet weighted with deliberation, lingered on James, stretching the silence between them. "You acted justly, but institutional constraints necessitate consequences." James inhaled deeply. I accept that over the ensuing days, James found himself under administrative review. Meanwhile, the recorded footage proliferated across digital platforms. Hashtags such as Silent Protector and Guard Gone Hero emerged propelling the event into public discourse. James, however, remained detached from the viral fervor, instead continuing his duties with unwavering commitment. Some of his fellow guards commended his actions in hushed tones, while others expressed concern that he had jeopardized his career for a single moment of moral courage. Then one evening, as the golden hues of the setting sun cast elongated shadows across the barracks, a visitor arrived. Marcus, the rhythmic tap of his cane against the cobblestone echoed. Through the courtyard, a steady cadence that heralded his approach. He paused briefly at the entrance, his gaze sweeping across the disciplined order of the guards within before stepping forward, a knowing smile gracing his weathered features. The elder man stood at the barracks entrance, a knowing smile upon his lips. "I had a feeling you'd face repercussions," Marcus remarked. James chuckled lightly. A minor inconvenience. Marcus extended an envelope. This came from the palace. James accepted it, his brow furrowing. The envelope bore the royal seal. He opened it cautiously, eyes scanning its contents before widening in subtle astonishment. "They are acknowledging your actions," Marcus affirmed. "This isn't a reprimand, it's a commendation." James looked up momentarily speechless. His mind raced. Considering what this meant for his career, instead of dismissal, he was being recognized for his moral integrity. Marcus placed a firm hand on his shoulder. "Good men do not adhere blindly to orders. They uphold what is right." James nodded at that moment. He understood that his role extended beyond mere ceremonial obligation. He was not just a figure of tradition. He was above all a protector. From that day forward, James bore his duty with renewed purpose, an embodiment of both discipline and moral conviction. The weight of his decision lingered in his thoughts, reshaping his understanding of service. No longer did he see himself as merely a sentinel of tradition. Instead, he recognized the profound intersection between duty and ethical agency. His role had evolved not as an unthinking enforcer of protocol, but as a guardian of both order and principle. His story resonated far beyond the palace gates, becoming a testament to the enduring struggle between rigid institutional constraints and the ethical obligations of the individual, though protocols remained unchanged. A quiet shift had occurred, one that reminded those who serve that duty at its core must always be aligned with justice.